Well, we're probably a minute or so early, which is amazing. I've got this up and running. So thank you for joining us tonight, and what a roller coaster it has been for the last couple of weeks. There has been so many changes in the way that we're living and doing business. It feels like, certainly in our business, that we've been putting in new policies and procedures in place daily, and getting those out to our owners and our tenants. Educating them and obviously all of our team members as well. So now with the eviction moratorium and hardship, it's added another level of expertise into our property management role, and the team have certainly been working very hard through the last few weeks sorting all of those things out. The governments have added laws around all the social distancing, removed the ability for open for inspections and auctions, and have made the real estate industry get so tech savvy, it feels like overnight. We've been very lucky at Domain & Co because we have been very tech savvy for the life of our business, thanks to Warwick Brookes, who's on our screen with us. We have had virtual tours in place for our rental properties for the last couple of years. So the landlords who are with us are very lucky to already have that there for tenants to view properties virtually. And also all of our systems and procedures and files are all cloud-based. So no physical files have been in our office for a while now, which has made it very easy for the majority of our team to transition into working from home. And hopefully this has been without any glitches in our service to all of our clients. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is mdennis. We started Domain & Co around 20 years ago to assist investors with their tenants, and also to help people buy properties and sell properties as property advocates. As a bit of an independent, I guess, sounding board for them and making sure they're heading in the right direction. Property management is definitely my passion, which I'm still very much involved with. And for those who do know me, they know that I'm very system and procedure driven, which helps run a pretty tight ship. And in times like this, it is very much paying off for us and the team. So at 8 o'clock every Thursday, I post a video with a property professional. Tonight is a little bit different. As I mentioned, it's our very first live interview that we're doing, and given the circumstances, I thought it might be great to have Warwick Brookes on board. You can see all of the backlog of my video interviews. If you click on the video button on my Facebook channel, there's interviews there from accountants through to pool inspectors. We've interviewed our flooring company for the types of floors we look in investment properties. So have a look there, and I'm sure there's a lot of the videos there that will interest you and educate you as well. But tonight, as I mentioned, a very special guest, Warwick Brookes, who is also a director of Domain & Co. Warwick, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'd also like to point out to everybody that Melanie and I are socially distancing ourselves. We're in separate parts of the office doing this. Normally we would probably want to do this sitting next to each other, but we are in different parts of the office for it. Myself, director of Domain & Co. I've been in real estate for 25 years. 2 years of that was selling real estate, which I didn't really enjoy too much. Last 23 years has been helping people buy and sell real estate from an advisory point of view. So that's buyer advocacy and vendor advocacy. So over those 23 or 25 years in real estate, we've seen a lot of different changes, a lot of ups and downs. It's just been a bit of a roller coaster, and especially the last couple of years, but this is obviously what's happening now is unprecedented and is going to have the biggest impact I've seen.
Yeah, really strange times. Just thought I'd do a few shout outs. Susan, Ellen, Belle, thanks for watching. Steve, great to see you all here. Andrea and Amanda, thanks for joining us too. It's great. If anyone has got any questions throughout this chat, please feel free to post it in the comments, and we will try to answer it as we're chatting too. So whether we do that at the end and have a bit of a check if there's some questions and things people want to know that we may not be covering, we want to help you guys out. So if you do have anything, please feel free to ask. Warwick, why don't we, unpack the changes? So for open for inspections, how is this being handled now for sale properties?
So obviously with sale properties, open inspections are being banned. So that is with groups of people. So safe social distancing is a requirement now. As a requirement for that, agents are now pretty much doing time slot registrations. Typically about a 10-minute time slot they're booking different people in with, depending on the size of the property. But yeah, so it's changing the way that they're doing it, and we are seeing that just due to the lower demand out there of buyers, we are seeing that it is making it a little bit easier for agents to go onto that one-on-one personal inspection process with people. But yeah, it's pretty much a changing market, but everyone is bringing hand sanitizers and face masks and everything else to inspections to make sure that people feel comfortable.
Absolutely. And look, it's very much the same with property management. As I mentioned before, we're offering the virtual tours and doing video walkthroughs for properties we haven't got the virtual tours on yet, because we can only do them on empty properties. And people are actually opting out of coming to a physical inspection and applying based on those virtual tours, because they are very realistic. They look pretty awesome. I'm very proud of the virtual tours we've been doing. We're also supplying gloves for everybody, and our team are certainly gloved and masked up and asked not to touch anything, and asking just to walk through so we can set the property up for them, and they have the need not to do that. So one at a time, and then safe social distancing, waiting out the front if it's not your turn to come through. So Warwick, auctions are also banned. Melbourne is the auction capital. We auction every property, pretty much. If someone wants to sell a property and it's a good property in an inner Melbourne suburb, we say auction, but not anymore. So does that mean all properties are now up for private sale?
Yeah, so what we have seen over the last 2 weeks is pretty much everything that was up for auction has either had the auction brought forward prior to the rules coming into place, or if that wasn't possible, has been converted to private sale. So there are not very many properties up for auction now. We are seeing that there are a couple of companies out there who are doing online auctions, so they'll be doing them virtually. This is a kind of a technology that has been around for a little while, and it hasn't really had a lot of uptake. None of the major agencies use the system or anymore. They did trial them a couple of years ago, but because it didn't really work, they stopped using them. But I'd say that now all of those companies are rushing to look at the technology and the best technology for their services. And yeah, it could be a change of how auctions go on forward, because people will have to do auctions this way. And so auctions won't be on a Saturday anymore. They'll be on a Thursday night, and they'll be online. And
it's interesting how people don't want to change, but when they're forced to change, it can actually bring good things.
Yeah, well, just recently, only in the last month, agents have started to go to digital contracted auctions where you don't need to sign anything. It's just all digital signatures. So luckily that came in before all this happened, and that's going to push that right to the extreme. And by the end of this, every agency will be doing digital contracts, and you won't be seeing paper ones, I'd say, again in the future.
Absolutely. Bella and Joseph, thanks for your comments. We will get to those questions through our chat. So if you stay with us, we'll certainly answer those queries that you've got. So with COVID-19 on the loose, how are you seeing the market out there currently? You're out obviously still hunting for people wanting to buy, and you've got a couple of sales on the go too as an advocate. Yeah,
we have seen the number of inquiries significantly drop off over the last week. And unfortunately, because of what's happening and the stay-at-home policy, a lot of people are luckily adhering to that, but people who need to find a place are still out there. But there has been a big downturn. We're also not expecting a lot of properties to come on the market right now. Most owners, I would suggest, will be waiting for restrictions to ease before they decide to put their property on and know what's going to go on having forward. And pretty much every property that was going to be auctioned in the next 3 months is now up for what they call off market. So we're getting emails every day from real estate agencies saying we've got these off market and at this price. So they're not being put on the actual internet because that costs money. But yeah, they're going to be thrown around until they can actually hit the market properly.
So there's still some good properties out there. I assume you just need to know those places to look, and as an advocate, you're pretty much all over that, I'm sure.
Yeah, look, there are still quite a lot of good places. I mean, there's always people that need to move, need to sell for whatever reasons, which does make good properties come on the market. And now there is obviously a lot lower supply of them, but there are still good ones out there.
Absolutely. So we have had a number of owners who were looking to sell their property just before COVID-19 hit Australia. What would your advice be to them now?
We've pretty much recommended to everybody who was thinking of selling to put their plans on hold for the moment, unless they're under financial hardship where they are in a position that they need to sell. We're pretty much just saying, look, just put it on hold. Let's see what's going on. We're keeping them up to date every week as to what's progressing in the market, how we're seeing, how many buyers we're seeing out there, speaking to real estate agents to see how many properties they're getting through. Some properties are still selling quite well. Others, like the apartment market, has had a significant drop off, which is predominantly driven by first home buyers. And as a result, the first home buyers are a bit more nervous because they have seen what's happened, and not everybody knows if they're going to be kept their jobs or not. So they're kind of probably a little bit more cautious now. So our advice is, look, just hold now, and it's going to be hold for a couple of months, but it is really good to plan these ahead. And if you are thinking of selling, planning well ahead and knowing when to put it on and what to do becomes very, very important at these times. You can call up any agents right now. You can call up most agencies and you'll say, I've got a property to sell, and they'll say, we've got buyers everywhere, we've got heaps of people want to buy. It's just not the case, but
they're looking
to get listings. They're desperate to get listings because this is going to have a major impact on the financial income of real estate agents, this market. We're here to make sure that our clients' properties go on the market at the right time.
We've had just a question from Catherine on what are your best tips for people selling right now. Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, so what we're doing with people selling right now is we're doing a lot of research and vetting agents. So we're not just pretty much, in the past you'd get a couple of agents or 3 agents and you'd look at their marketing campaigns and going to auction it and you know what's going to happen. That just doesn't happen anymore. So now we're kind of going to each agent, okay, how many buyers have you got? Who are the legitimate buyers? We're putting them on very short authorities. So if they tell us they've got legitimate buyers, they only get 5 days to bring them through to prove that they're there. If not, we kind of move through different agents because it's just a completely different way of having to deal with this market now. And the old way of doing things is gone. Hopefully it will come back, not too soon, but it's just it's a whole new game right now. And so if you're thinking about putting your property on the market, choosing the right agent and not getting locked into an agent for an extended period of time is crucial.
Absolutely. And Sandy's just made a comment. I want to thank you for your advice before COVID-19 hit. So as a buyer's advocate, you still have clients looking for property. Do you still have clients looking for property?
Yeah, look, we do have clients. It's interesting. We already had clients who were looking. Some of those clients we've put things on hold because they're uncertain about what's going on, but we still have other clients who are looking to buy. We're also picking up some clients who want to buy and are not able to get out there because of social distancing and staying home and different priorities right now. So they've got us on the ground. Obviously, it's our job, so we're allowed to be out there looking at properties. Helping them kind of get through find those properties that suit without them having to go through 5 properties in a day and have none of them suit. We'll kind of do that for them.
Yeah, fantastic. So we've had a couple of questions come through on the buying side. Craig asked, as a buyer, do you think it would be a good time to grab a bargain investment property right now? And that was going to be my question is, what would you say to people who are in the position to be able to buy right now?
Yes, look.
Carly's also asked the same thing. If you've got the money, is now an opportune time to buy?
Unfortunately, in the coming month or two, there is going to be some very good buying, unfortunately for the people that are forced to sell, which is sad. But to answer your question, yes, there is going to be a drop in the market value of properties for a certain amount of time. We're already seeing it, especially in the apartment market. So yeah, look, if you're cashed up and you've got the ability, definitely the next 2 months is definitely going to be a time that you will see prices like they have not been for a little while.
Absolutely. And a shout out to Hayley and Nick for watching, and Matt and Steve there too. Thanks for tuning in. So how would you predict the market moving forward, Warwick?
That's a
crystal ball that we're always asked to gaze into.
Yeah, look, that's that's a very hard one. Predicting the market is going to drop, so there's no denying it. The market will drop in these times, and we're also going to see, once these times finished, because we're going to have such a low amount of stock right now, and a lot of people who are going to be in hardship. A lot of people who are in hardship, who will be waiting to sell. When the market does come back on, there will be an oversupply, potentially, of properties, which will also keep pricing low for them. So we don't really see the prices of properties rise until we have a high demand and a low supply, which I don't see happening this year. So I'd say that there's going to be good buying this year. Next year, well, I don't think anyone's even thinking about next year right now. Hopefully next year we're back to normal. But look, the Melbourne market.
We want to fast forward to next year at this stage.
Yeah, I look, the Melbourne market has performed, especially the inner city market. And when I talk about inner city, I'm talking kind of up to 20 kilometres out. Over the years, it's had its downs and ups, but it's always bounced back, because it's the good properties will always be good properties, and there will be a small supply of good properties, and they will always do well. Properties like off the plan ones, or ones that were built in the last 5 to 10 years, will have major setbacks and will probably not recover within the next 10 years. And there'll be a lot of people defaulting on their settlements for new ones.
Queries around that, haven't we? People who are have purchased off the plan, settling next year, and they're in financial hardships.
Yeah, well, we already saw that last year with the Chinese market, where lending tightened up a lot, and we saw that a huge amount of defaults were coming from Chinese buyers. But we're just going to see homegrown ones kind of here now. It's going to be a very interesting market, that new off the plan market. It's never performed well through my whole 25 years in real estate, but I suggest that the hit it's going to get right now is probably one it won't be recovering from for a very long time.
Absolutely. Warwick, Shirley asks, getting your house ready for sale. Do you recommend engaging tradespeople to help right now if safe social distancing is in play, or is it just too risky?
No, definitely. If you're engaging with tradespeople who are following procedures properly, and that's very important to speak to them about how their team are following their procedures and what they have in place for social distancing, and making sure that their company are doing everything properly. But yeah, look, I definitely think that if you've got spare time and you need to get some things done to get your property ready, there's not much else to do at the moment. So getting that done and sorted, so that when the market does turn, because when the market turns and it dials up a notch, as we know with Melbourne, when it dials up, it dials up. So you want to be there and be ready for when that happens.
Yeah, okay. Linda and Irvin and Michelle, thanks for joining us tonight. Warwick, Deanna has asked, do you think this will affect the Asian buyers in Australia?
Yes. We've already had a big impact on what we've seen with the Asian market, due to the fact that the lending requirements have changed. China changed the rules on how much money that they could take out, and land tax, which is crazy. They pay an absolute truckload of land tax, which has taken a lot of them out of the market previously. We did have an initial feeling that when this kind of hit over in Asia, that we would see a resurgence of Asians wanting to buy in Australia because they might perceive it more of a safer environment. Well, at the moment we are. That's the future. We'll kind of see what that happens. But yeah, until we see the economic impact of all of this on China and Asia and the rest of the world, because all these countries that are having lockdowns, they're not buying anything from these other countries anymore. So the on-flow effect of the global economy is going to be a big factor in what other nationalities are going to be doing in Australia going forward.
Absolutely. As in Billy, thanks for watching. Jules, great to see you here. Brad's asked, will the market value prices drop, or will a lack of competition prevent the runaway prices all vendors are hoping for?
I think the market will, some portions of the market will definitely drop. The ones where there's a high supply of product will drop, obviously. Supply and demand works the same way every time. But yeah, look, the ones that have got a little bit special, they will still perform quite well and still have competition around them.
Absolutely. And Peter has asked a question. I'm not sure if you can answer, but you could give it a shot. What if you've signed a contract with the builder, but the builder cannot complete the house now or in the foreseeable future? That happens in normal pre-COVID-19.
Yeah, COVID-19, that's just every day with builders. Sorry if any builders watching. Yeah, you're not in a fantastic situation there, unfortunately. I would be shooting a PM to Melanie. We can put you in touch with some companies that know how to deal with this. Yeah, I can't really give advice on that live, but yeah, we can definitely, if you shoot mail PM or direct mail, yeah, we can put you in touch with the people to help you with that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a few questions around rental and investments too that we'll get back to. So heading up the rental department of Domain & Co has been absolutely like no other for the last couple of weeks. We're now working very much harder, which is for less money, with rents dropping, both on properties not being leased as quickly as they have been in the past, or for at rental market value. We're just not seeing getting that. And also negotiating financial hardship with tenants and landlords, because everybody is in the same boat across the world, has been a very challenging time for the team. Most property managers aren't equipped to deal with these sorts of negotiations. Everyone's going through obviously their own personal issues that they've got going on due to COVID-19, but also hearing, you know, the financial distress and just distress from everybody, tenants and landlords, can be quite tolling. So the government hasn't put anything really clear in place with regards to residential rents, which has been really hard dealing with that, because the public mentality for landlords is that they're rich, right? So everyone who owns a property is rich, when unfortunately that is so not true. Most owners are mum and dad investors. They're doing their best to keep the property afloat, and majority of them are negatively geared, which means they've got to put their own money into the property. The rent doesn't cover the costs that they've got going on. So this has created a bit of a divide between landlords and tenants, and left the property managers in the middle, with the government saying almost every week they're going to talk about it, but they never really come to any decisions on talking about it, except for to whack out a 6-month moratorium on evictions, with no clear guideline around that for a week and a half after they announced it, to say, but that doesn't mean you can't pay your rent. So that's certainly been a very interesting one to deal with. We've seen some great generosity from a lot of our landlords to support their tenants who are going through legitimate hardship. And I say legitimate because the word on the street is ask your landlord for a rent reduction, even if you're not suffering hardship, which isn't in the spirit of anything. And so we have to get our tenants now to fill in hardship application forms, and we've got to assess those like any other application to make sure they actually are in a financial hardship place. It's then up to the landlord to decide what and if they are able to help at all. The government has put in place some assistance for tenants, so that's around the Job Seeker program, the Job Keeper program and Rent Assist. So there is some financial assistance happening there. And the tenants do need to supply proof of their hardship, so bank statements or letters to say that their hours have been cut or their job has been lost. The more evidence a tenant can supply to a landlord, the more likely they are to get some assistance. We've been escalating all of our hardship requests to Warwick. He's got a very good financial head on his shoulders. And as a director of our office, we felt that dealing with the hardship cases needed to be escalated to a senior member of our team. So Warwick, what are some of the ways owners have been able to assist with offering some rental relief for tenants who are going through a legitimate hardship?
So this hardship is a very complicated process, and every situation is different. And as you said, some people's interpretation of hardship is very different to other people's, and somebody who is in absolutely no hardship feels like their hardship is the same as somebody who has lost everything. So it's actually it's a very mentally draining process going through all this and talking to everybody and trying to negotiate. What we have been doing with landlords is we're initially explaining to tenants that our offer of rent reductions are merely it's not that you're given that money, it's money that is put aside to pay back later. So landlords are offering anywhere between $25 a week to $100 a week discounts for all of our rental programs that we're looking at are now based over a 3-month period. So at the 2.5 month mark, we'll be reassessing their financial hardship because that's when some of the benefits and so forth will start kicking in. Our goal is to make sure our landlords are getting as much income as they can get, but also supporting their tenants that do legitimately need it.
And it has been up to the individual landlords on how much they can afford to support too, because as I mentioned before, a lot of them just don't have the ability to offer any rent relief themselves.
Yeah, look, that's a hard conversation we've got to have with people to say, I understand that you, to the tenant, I understand that you've got no money, but unfortunately your landlord also has lost their job and they don't have any money either to be able to pay their loans and rates and land tax and all that kind of stuff. So it does make it a complicated situation, and we look at all different avenues for that to try to be resolved. The biggest hurdle we're kind of facing, and a lot of people will be facing in property management and landlords with their tenants, are the tenants that are not Australian residents. So if they're on a working visa or if they're on a school visa, and so most of those people were in hospitality, and especially the ones who are on school visas, they've lost their jobs, and if you are not an Australian resident, you get no benefits. So these guys are pretty much cut off from their job. They can't get any benefit from the government. A lot of them, their families overseas also are in lockdown and struggling financially, and it's just it's a very complicated and messy situation.
And that's one of the amazing things to think about, is that just there's no one not touched by this in the world. We're all going at the same time. Yeah. I guess with landlords with mortgages, you do have the option to ask the bank to put your mortgage on hold for 3 to 6 months. So if you haven't requested that from your bank, do that now. But do remember, for landlords, this is not a non-payment of your mortgage. It just gets added to your mortgage at the end, and you effectively end up paying interest on your interest. So in the long run of your mortgage, you will have more to pay. And I think that's really important for tenants to understand that too, because the thought process out there is that owners can have their mortgages put on hold. So why should I pay the rent if they don't have to pay their mortgage? They certainly do have to pay their mortgage. And so that's why a lot of the rent negotiations are a bit of a relief now, but it does need to be caught back up down the track.
Yeah. The landlords who have put their mortgage on hold, if their first payment's gone through, they will have noticed that their loan owing value would have gone up by the amount of interest that they should have paid. So each time that payment is not made, they just put that interest straight on top of your loan, which then you're accruing interest on the interest. So it's not the best scenario for everybody, but it's the only scenario for some people. But yeah, it is really important that tenants do understand that it's just because they're in hardship that no one else is, kind of thing.
Absolutely. Belle asked earlier what happens with leases for vacant properties. If you lease a property, what happens if a tenant then declares hardship after they've moved in, and especially around landlord insurance now being impossible to obtain, which we've always referred a few landlord insurance companies, and the last one, EBM, has held out until today. We got a notice to say that they aren't putting any more coverage in place, so we've got to source out some new ones. And I know Property Insurance Plus are looking at putting some things in place. We got an email from them today. They're working through it to try and offer something. Belle, I guess the answer to your question is not unlike any hardship, whether the tenant's moved in and just moved in, or whether they've been there for 6 months or 2 years or 4 years. Everybody has the potential to be going through this hardship, and we deal with each case individually. And again, it's up to the owner to really decide on where they're at with their finances and how they can offer relief, if they can offer any relief to a tenancy.
We've also got, just on that, when doing these kind of things, the thing that the tenants need to kind of factor in is that because the rent becomes essentially on their balance sheet as still owing what they don't pay, it's for them, they need to kind of make the decision of how long do I let that kind of rack up for, because it's not as if it just goes away. You have to pay it back eventually, and we are seeing quite a few people now breaking leases. So a lot of tenants will move back home with their parents or move in with friends, just so they don't keep getting that adding up. So you will see more rentals coming on the market as a result of that.
And finding tenants now during COVID-19 is definitely tougher than what it has been in the past. We're definitely doing our very best to work around it to get tenants into properties, because an empty property is no good for any property owner. As I mentioned before, we've got the virtual tours, so a lot of people are looking at those, and they're really it's great for us because they are really investigating the properties a lot more before they come. In the past, we'd have an open for inspection and someone would be coming to the open, or we will set a time to go and meet them, and they get there and they say, I don't like the area, or I thought it had 3 bedrooms and it's got 2, when all of it is on the ad. So people are really investigating the properties now before they get there to make sure that they're definitely keen on it before they put themselves at risk, I suppose, and come out of their homes. Properties are slower to rent, as I mentioned. People are directed to stay at home, but there are still people that need to move. So their property might have been sold and they have to move out. Some people, need to downsize and pay less rent. So there's still a lot of people out there, or some, not a lot, but there are people out there looking to rent properties. So we are still renting them every week, but we are being a little bit more creative in how we're offering them. So a property that may have been on the market for $600 a week, we might be offering it for $550 per week for the first 3 months, and up to $600 a week. Just different things that we've got to be thinking about to try and get those good tenants into the property. Gives a win-win to both the landlord and the tenant. So the tenant gets a little bit of rent relief for the first few months, and the landlord's got a good tenant going into their property, because it's much better than it being vacant. Anthony, you asked a question around the thoughts on electronic application forms, electronic condition reports, electronic leases. Do we really need to meet who is living in these properties anymore? Oh, absolutely. I don't think we can get away from the customer service, which is something we've got to be really careful of, I think. In these times, we've become so digital, like we do all of those things electronic anyway. And pre-COVID-19, we meet everybody at the property, and we also would do a tenant welcome meeting to meet with a tenant for, you know, at least half an hour to go through all the ins and outs and help them be a good tenant, and also teach them on how we can help them as their property managers. It's great to be able to have that customer service level. And, you know, let's face it, a home is somebody's home. It's not just a house. So we don't want to be just a keystroke away. We want to have that personal element in our client-facing relationships. It's much nicer when everybody is friendly with each other, and we don't want it to turn all electronic. Electronic is great. It makes it easier. Electronic leases is certainly easier. You know, everything electronic is easier, but there is still a massive element of people. We're people, you know. Lots of people say to me, why do you love real estate? And it's actually not the real estate, it's the people. Managing the tenants, looking after the landlords, looking after the trades. It's all managing people. That's so important. So I hope that answers your question, Anthony. We had an announcement or a very strong recommendation from the Real Estate Institute of Victoria late this afternoon to stop having open for inspections on properties that are tenanted and only have them on properties that are empty. So we have been just moving towards that, but from tonight we certainly will be having no more open for inspections on properties that are tenanted. So properties won't be advertised. You know, usually it would be 3 or 4 weeks out of a tenant vacating. Now it'll be a week out of the tenant vacating, so people can see virtual tours, but we'll still be working our database and letting people know about properties that come up, because we may be leasing properties that don't hit the market, is my prediction. They'll just be going out to our database with our virtual tour, and hopefully we can help the owners save some money on advertising as well.
And now another big thing that has come up recently in the rental space is Airbnb. So we have seen that Airbnb properties have pretty much lost all of their bookings, and the foreseeable future of bookings is very bleak. And we just saw that New South Wales have pretty much put out a press release. The government put out a press release for Easter saying that if you're caught going to an Airbnb over Easter, you will be fined. So they're pretty strict on all that kind of stuff. So as a result, Mel's been picking up or having people contact her who have Airbnb properties, who are looking to take them off the market and put tenants in them, or long-term tenants in them, until things might change, which could be a year away. So maybe you could have a bit of a chat about that, Mel.
Yeah, look, I mean, Airbnb market is really gone. It has been successful for some people. There's a lot of work to do, but it has been successful. Now, yeah, just with the movement not being there, it's going to be a bit of a tough slog, I think, for those with Airbnb properties who stay with them for the next 6 to 12 months at least. So, you know, our advice is, if you can, empty them of the furniture and pop them back on the market for 12 months and see how we go. Diana, you've asked if we're finding many landlords are offering rental relief to their tenants. Look, really over our whole portfolio at the moment, we're probably less than 5%, would you say, Warwick, suffering a hardship at the moment?
Yeah, I think we've got probably actual arrangements in place, probably 2% of our rent roll. So it's not a big percentage impact. It's obviously a big impact for the people that it's impacting. But I think that does show that there's still a lot of people out there with jobs, doing their jobs very differently these days, obviously in different rooms and at home, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. June's watching, and Jolene, thanks for being here, and Kay. Vicky has asked, does the moratorium on evictions cover Victoria? Yes, Vicky, it covers the whole of Australia. That was a government announcement. And what a week and a half that was until he came back out and, Scarborough came back out and said, but that doesn't mean you don't pay your rent. So we had a lot of people saying, great, we can't be kicked out for 6 months and so we won't pay our rent. It's not how it works. You still need to pay your rent. It will catch up with you. So certainly don't fall into that space.
The moratorium is, the way that works is the government says that essentially the moratorium is that this is what we're going to do. Because every state and territory in Australia has different laws around it, each state and territory has to come up with their own set of rules around it, which is what is happening right now. They're trying to figure out how to do it, which is
waiting.
It's a massive task. You would have seen that they've kind of worked out a code of conduct for commercial tenancies, which is I assume they see as more pressing because of such the massive impact of those rentals it's been having on businesses. But yeah, I think that the governments are working on, obviously, in order to give something somewhere, they've got to take something from somewhere else. And it's a very complicated, and I'd say there's lots of discussions and arguments going on in government right now over it.
Which kind of answers your question, Craig. Has the government talked at all about reduction or a holiday on land taxes for investors? If they put a holiday in place, you'll be paying it back in the long run, so be careful of that. Land tax was certainly, he's popped in there, land tax is already the straw that can break the camel's back, absolutely, as far as making a return on investment property in Victoria. So, and Vicky speaks about land taxes as well. Land taxes is certainly massive in Victoria, and particularly if you're owning a property in a family trust or a company.
The interesting thing I see is, obviously getting political now, but the interesting thing is that the Australian government is investing so much money into keeping everything going, but the state government doesn't really seem to be giving anything away. They're keeping their money a little bit tighter, closer to their chest at the moment, whether or not they will. But land tax would be a relief, would be a big one to help a lot of people through. And even rates, relief on rates, because obviously over the recent years, property values have gone up a lot, and rates have just gone through the roof. So when your property, although it might increase in value it might even double in value, so your rates go up double, but rents don't go up accordingly with that either. So rates have been a big one for properties, but land tax has definitely been a killer for many of our landlords over the last years, and we've had landlords have to sell just because of land tax.
Absolutely. Anthony has a question a little bit side of what we've been talking about, but yes, we would meet all 3 tenants in the sign up if there are 3 tenants on a lease, not just the one. I think it's important that we do have a relationship with all tenants in the property, and that they do come to that welcome meeting to learn, what it is to be a tenant with Domain & Co and how we can be assisting them. Thanks for watching, Sandra and Robin and Betty. I can see you all there. Catherine has asked a question. She's moving out next week, and what's the best way to hand her keys back? Should she be meeting the property manager at the property? So that's an interesting one. We actually have new residential tenancy laws supposedly coming into effect from the 1st of July, and a couple have already dribbled in with tenants and electronic signing of things. Catherine, I would suggest that you touch base with your property manager and ask them how their process is. We've locked our office now. We don't have people coming into the office and lots of keys are coming back through the doors, or if we've got a set of keys, we're letting them leave the keys in the property. We're moving towards a key safe at properties to do express checkouts, if you like. So that's something that I think will be a great positive move forward that we will keep in our business with the express checkouts, because when you're moving, the last thing you want to do is potentially meet your property manager or go to their office to hand the keys back. So the easier we can make that process for them, the better, with obviously clear checklists, as you know I love, and guidelines around what they've got to do to move out and to get their bond back. But yeah, definitely touch base with your property manager and see how they want to do it. So sorry, I sidegressed a little bit there. The new laws say that we do need to offer the tenants to meet with us, and we do like to meet with them at an outgoing to discuss anything that might still be issues. Invariably something's missed being cleaned, we can just get it sorted on the spot, which makes it much better and quicker for everybody. Tali, you've asked if there's any positives that we've seen come out of COVID-19. Certainly, I guess from my point of view, I would say the team pulling together and the whole work environment has changed to be most people working from home. Some people are still in the office because we still need to have the office manned for key deliveries and pickups and drop-offs and those sorts of things. But I've been so proud of our team and how they've handled the whole COVID-19 issues and changes has been fantastic. And also to see the generosity coming out of our landlords and tenants too has been really fantastic as well. Do you have anything to add to that, Warwick?
No, I agree. The generosity. I mean, we've got landlords. We had a landlord last night wanting us to create a hamper and give it to their tenants of disinfectants and so forth.
I said to her, if I could get it for me, I'd get it for your tenant, but it's a little bit hard. Thanks for watching.
I think every office is going to never go back to the way it was and never be the same again now that we're all set up so digitally now, and we run all our meetings through Zoom now, and they work really well. So it's going to give a lot more flexibility to everybody in the future. And people do enjoy working from home. And they're not going to enjoy working from home for the extended period of time we're going to have to, but it is nice to be able to have the opportunity to do that. And all of the main positive I see coming out of this is that it will force a technology push within the industry that has probably been lagging, that will help us do our jobs more efficiently and better for our clients.
The big negative I'm getting is no hugs. I love my hugs, and my team know that I love to hug. Coming into the office today, Soph was here and we sort of went towards each other and went, oh no, we can't do that. So yeah, certainly seeing it on those. Deanna's asked about what's happening with VCAT hearings. They're being done over the phone now. So we're pretty lucky in our office that we have very minimal VCAT hearings. Lucky if we can count them on one hand through a year. So we are yet to have a phone VCAT hearing, but I've heard from other property managers that they're going quite successfully. Craig's made a comment about many small businesses might find that they can operate online after this all passes and not continuing renting retail spaces. Absolutely, Craig. I can definitely see that happening, and potentially for our office too. We've got this big office in Hawthorn, and now it feels very, very empty, and I don't know that we'll ever go back to filling it. So certainly change will be on the horizon for us, certainly, and it will certainly be pushing, I guess, retail rents down because they have been crazy over the last years, and certainly knowing what we pay for our retail rent. Absolutely.
You'll see the co-working space companies have a big boom once all this ends.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching, Rob and Tava. I can see you there. So I guess having the right advice before making any decisions is now more important than ever before, and in my entire time in this real estate industry. Would you agree with that, Warwick?
Oh, definitely. It's so unpredictable what's going to be happening going forward, and knowing what decisions to make, and having somebody with you who has so much more experience in that and understanding and connections is just going to be needed in the future to be able to get through this and be able to, if you do need to sell, get the absolute highest price and make sure that you're not just ramroded into taking a price and choosing the wrong agent, all these kind of things, or even buying the wrong property and not paying the right price because you could have got it cheaper, because our ability to negotiate has been is just so high now because we've got the power at the moment. So yeah, definitely. It's a good time to be a property advisor, and for our clients, having that resource available to them is definitely a benefit.
Absolutely. So look, we're here for you. If you do have any questions, whether it be a small question or a large question, if you think it's a silly question, no question is silly for us. We're always happy to have a chat about property. So feel free to send me a PM via Facebook My email address is available through my Facebook page as well. Love you to tune in every Thursday. I don't know how long how many more video interviews I've got that will be happening on a Thursday. There's a few there certainly that are inappropriate to be posting now around moving interstate and overseas, but they will come back. The team here, myself, Warwick, Brad, also a director, is here to help you. So feel free to lean on us for support to guide you through these uncertain times. Warwick, I wanted to thank you for spending the time with us tonight. I'm glad our live has worked. We've got through it, so we might be posting a few more of these over the time. And you know, with this information that has been so important, I think, for property owners and investors across Melbourne and Australia as a whole. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, guys. And
thank you for watching another one of my professional property series interviews. I'd love to see your comments, and please like and subscribe to my social channels on Facebook and YouTube. I welcome any suggestions for new topics too.